Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you will receive alerts when there are new episodes. Go get it.
That's what I tell them. I've been grinding for so long, I wake up and chase my goals. I go out and I go get it. Hot or cold, that's all I know. I don't succeed, then I don't breathe. Success, what does it mean? If I conquer all my goals, then I'm living out my dream. Dig deep, go out and get it. Success Chronicles. Compete until it's finished. Success Chronicles. Go take care of your business. Success Chronicles. It's deeper than just winning. Success Chronicles.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chip Baker coming to you with a Hangout and Highlight session. And I'm so excited to be highlighting this person today. An amazing lady, Andrea Bitner, longtime educator, has been doing lots to make a positive difference, a multiple-time author, speaker. I mean, just numbers of things that she's done, just the depth of the positive difference that she's making is phenomenal. And so I'm so excited to have her on and highlight her journey to let you guys know about who she is and what she has going on. So first, Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out on the Success Chronicles.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into it. Let's first off, I'd love for you to just tell the audience, just kind of talk to them about your journey. Let them know who you are and what you do.
So it's great to be here. I am an educator in my 26th year of teaching in public education. And really, when I think about it, for 19 or 20 of those 26 years, I've spent as a support teacher. So I don't know much else than working with what we would call the at-risk population. I've worked with every grade level so far throughout my career. I've worked as a Title I reading specialist, an English language learner teacher, a mentor, a college professor, as well as an elementary reading specialist and EL teacher. So I'm just excited to be here. In addition to getting to do that work, I am also an author and a speaker. So I have two books. One is called Take Me Home. The other is called When Niagra Falls. And that is really a point in my life that I'm really proud of. It's two true stories that are creating great conversations about the impact that teachers have on kids and kids have on teachers, and true stories from around the world from some young people who were brave enough to tell about their experiences of becoming bilingual in America. And so those two books continue to promote great conversation, connection, and reflection. And I'm lucky enough, I say, to get to still teach daily and go out once or twice a month and help teachers on how to best support, connect, reach, teach, and collaborate with our English language learners and families.
So good. I want to go back a little bit. I'd love for you to share. I know you kind of talked about Take Me Home, but I'd love for you to really kind of just talk about, before we get into the new project, I'd love for you
Sure.
to just talk about how that started and like what it is. Like, I know the goodness of it, but I want you to share with the audience what it is so they know.
Take Me Home, as I mentioned, is the true story of 11 of my students who share what it's like to become bilingual in America. And that inspiration was based on something that happened in my teaching career about a decade ago. And I was working with about 40 students at Interboro High School who spoke about 25 different languages. And they came from all walks of life. I had kids who had crossed the border. I had kids that were born here. I had kids who were refugees. I had kids who had waited 10 years for a visa and came after their parents. I had kids that had waited 10 years for a visa, came before their parents. And we had adopted students. So we have in my district hundreds of students with diverse experiences, all language proficiency levels, in addition to a lot of different life experiences. And so at that time, we had this banner in my classroom, and our banner said, "Education is opportunity. Education is freedom. What's your plan?" Because our kids knew their only plan couldn't be, "I'm not going to be successful here." What we would say to them is, your parents and teachers have worked too hard to give you the opportunity to become bilingual. Your plan's not going to be, "I fail." And so it was with that mentality that we went through their ups and downs and everything in between with them through their high school experience. At the end of their high school experience, they signed that banner to say, "I had completed this chapters of my life's plan," and they headed out into the world as the young bilingual professional, amazing humans. And so at the time, I worked with this one family, the Lopez family, and I had taught all 7 of their children. Over the years, it was all boys and 1 girl. And all of them went through this what's your plan mentality. They happen to be kids that had crossed the border. They happen to be from the country of Salvador. And I've been to Salvador myself a few times to do some work with schools down there. And so about a year after I finished working with that family, there were a bunch of helicopters outside one day. And I remember looking around thinking, wow, what's going on? There's a lot of helicopters outside today. And about an hour after I had that thought, my principal came down to get me to tell me one of my students had been hit by the train. And unfortunately, that student was Nancy Lopez. And unfortunately, she had died that day. And so that threw our school community into a huge sense of trauma. We had to work with immigration. We had to work with the local police force. We had to work with the school. We had to work with mom and dad who were still learning English themselves. We had to navigate the funeral process. And what that led to was one of my jobs at the time, which was to speak at her funeral. And what that led to was this little poem I had written called Take Me Home. And that happened to be an homage to Nancy's life experience in crossing to the US. From that, a few months later, that poem sat on my desk and I continued to work with these amazing kids. And I thought maybe something about this true story could be helpful to people. And so I sent it out to some publishers, and this publisher gets back to me and they're like, hey, we really like your poem, but we don't want you to write a poem. We want you to write a book. And so what that led to was right around COVID, about 6 months of interviews of alumni who were in their late 20s. And I asked them lots of questions about their school experiences. And from that, we wrote Take Me Home, the true story of 11 of my students who share what it's like to become bilingual in the US. We tried to hit almost every continent. We tried to hit almost every experience. And really my goal at that time, and still is today, was to showcase the true diversity that lies behind that label. I think in Texas we call it EBs, of an emerging bilingual or an English learner. In Jersey, it's a multilingual learner. I don't really care what the label says. These kids come to us with diverse experiences, and it's our job to explore and investigate exactly what they were. And so we're really proud of it. It's created a lot of great connection, reflection, conversation around the world, and it continues to do so today, 5 years later.
So good. I wanted to make sure that you got time to discuss that because I knew the journey and the story, but I wanted to make sure that the audience knew because it's so good. I think it reminds me of the importance of educators, like what you just talked about. That's not just, no one in the world really gets that experience but educators. Okay, maybe doctors or something like that, right? But, you think about it like, I love how you talk about, taught all of the kids, like had a relationship, like, man, that's amazing things. People coming from everywhere, and we are the connection to help them be successful in our country.
We really are. And really, through the conversations that I had with them, there were common themes. It didn't matter where they came from or what their life experiences were. They were experiencing one of the common themes, a lot of assumptions about what their, location meant. For example, my kids from Salvador were like, Miss B, everybody keeps saying I'm Mexican. I'm not from Mexico. I'm from Salvador. I'm from Colombia. I'm from Brazil. I was born in Texas. I was born in New Jersey. Why do people say that? Or other kids were coming in. I had some students from Africa. And one of my kids, I'll never forget, he said, Miss B, everybody here keeps asking me if I lived with lions. He's like, I never lived with lions. He's like, I went to a private boarding school in a city. And he's like, why do people say that? And then other kids were coming in wearing religious garb, and they would cry in my classroom because other kids were saying things about them that just weren't true or misunderstood. And so what I saw there was that opportunity, right, to showcase the asset of the diversity that they bring to the table and break down the myths and misconceptions that kind of were surrounding them at that time and still do today sometimes.
So good. So good. Well, what I want to do is now, I know you had an opportunity to talk about, your background of the first book. Let me do this before we do that.
Sure.
What was maybe one thing that you've learned from the whole experience of um, your teaching experience, as well as putting the book together? Like when you merge those two experiences together, what's maybe one or two things that you've learned from those experiences?
I think one of the things I learned is, even though I knew, as a young girl in a suburb of 15 minutes south of the Philadelphia airport in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, I always thought I had a sense of how big the world is, how much bigger even in the education world is than we are, because I get to work with these amazing kids and families. But I think what I learned was the education world is so much bigger than you think it is in this country. And the challenges that we all have are not that different. It doesn't matter. As I got into, starting to talk to schools and support teachers, the unexpected piece was everywhere I went, everything was the same, And so really just what I say, bursting my own bubble is something I needed to learn to do. Most teachers never get out of their building. They don't get off I call it their block. If you're in a department in a high school, or you're in a middle school team, or you're in the elementary with your grade partners, you rarely leave your part of the building. And so what I learned was it's really important to reach out to other educators, and whether it be in the district next door or somewhere in your state, or on a professional group like Facebook or LinkedIn, where people are posting real resources and real problems and real conversations, not a venting ground, but a place that you can connect, have virtual coffee chats, attend free PDs, keep, stocking your tools, right, in your toolbox. And I learned that along this journey about how big and where the opportunity really is.
So good. I love that. Well, let's go to the new project.
Sure.
Talk to us about the new project and the process with that.
So When Niagra Falls is another true story of a young girl who is now in high school, who I have worked with, again, with this family for about a decade. And what I've watched her learn over time is that sometimes being resilient means learning how to ask for help. And I think that not only adults, but, educators, we are problem solvers. And sometimes it's really difficult for us to lean into support from each other. And at the same time, when you come from an at-risk home at a young age, and I get to see this in action sometimes because I work with students over many years of a period of time, they're often taught, don't ask, don't trust, don't tell. And so when your normal, right, as an educator is not necessarily their normal, you have to learn how to accept and admire the normal that they consider to be success for them. But at the same time, you have to learn how to help them navigate a world you would like to see them reach in the future. And so a lot of times they're not sure how to do that. And it's bumpy. It is bumpy. There is no straight path to success. We know this. But working with kids and from at-risk places, or coming to school with a lot of layers that need to be supported, you have to be ready for the ups, downs, ugly, good, bad, everything in between. And so in this project, I saw an opportunity again to tell a true story of a young girl that finally found the bravery to learn to be resilient enough to ask for help. And I also wanted to, in this project, do two things. I wanted to start to shift perspective on the idea that those students that are most troubled are no good, because that's not the case either. I only know, like I said, some of the most troubled kids in the building. That's where I spend most of my time. And so what I did in this project was to create this true story with the intention of a middle and high school student audience, in addition to educators and school leaders. But I also created a poetry section where we have poems like The Door to More, or poems like Being Tough is Not Enough, or poems like When Niagara Falls, that include perspectives from the students and the teachers. And so my hope there is that they'll connect and have a better understanding of each other. And finally, at the end, I also thought it was important to validate and recognize and have some gratitude for the educators of the country. And so there's a section in the back called Gratitude for Teachers, where I write a letter to elementary teachers, a letter to middle school teachers, and a letter to high school teachers, highlighting what it's really like to be each of them, because I've done it too. I've worked with every grade. And so together collectively, it's called When Niagara Falls.
Wow. uh, just hearing you say all of that, man, it takes me back to the beauty of how blessed and fortunate we are to be in education. Just the relationships and experiences that we get to have, the connections that we make, uh, the bridges that we build for others. I think that also the opportunities that come for everyone involved. Just hearing you say that makes me think of the opportunities that you're setting them up for, but then now you're able to share their stories and your experiences and just opportunities for you to do that and help others and be a resource, right, for those that are coming along. So I don't know what has been something you've learned from the journey of this second book.
I think I found it within me a voice to need to say something, because I've watched a lot of these students walk around for a lot of their school career feeling like rotten apples. And whether it was lack of social skills, lack of academic skills, lack of emotional skills, lack of resilience skills, or check, 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 all of them at the same time, at some point in their life, they learned somewhere that maybe they weren't good enough, or they weren't strong enough, or they didn't have the capability to change or be successful or learn something new. And I thought to myself, I get to be a support teacher. I get to work with countless teachers every day. I get to work with almost every grade level every single week. So I get to see that trajectory happen over time. And I think what I learned and decided when I wrote this book is that here's another opportunity to present student voice and at the same time present teacher voice, because now I feel like I've got a balance of both worlds.
Boom.
I haven't heard a boom in a while.
Hey, I had to pause a minute and give you a boom on that, man. That's so good. Man, I guess as we close, I'd love for you to get an opportunity to share with the audience where they can go follow you and check you out. Those are people that are looking for speakers, an amazing speaker to pour into your people, how they can get the books, do book studies and do all of those things, share with classes. She also does, classes, that read the stories. She'd love to, talk to them. So all of those things, let's get that out there with them.
I appreciate that. So you can find Take Me Home and When Niagara Falls for sale on Amazon. That is the quickest, easiest way for you to pick them up. You can also go to my website, AndreaBitnerBooks.com, where you can learn more about me, my mission, and the work that I'm doing around the country to support educators on these topics. And you can also find me on social media. The primary place you can find me is probably LinkedIn, or on, I guess we call it X now, the old Twitter. But either way, LinkedIn or X or Instagram, you can find me there too on at Andrea Bitner Books.
Well, there it is. Andrea, thank you so much for taking the time. Man, so amazing what you do, but not just what you do, but how you do what you do. And so I wish you continued success.
Thank you so much.
Yes, yes. And thank you guys for checking out this session. We'll see you next time. God bless. Go get it.